بارك الله فيكم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Conference. Every time I am invited uh, to speak, I'm just immediately reminded there's fond memories of listening to Dr. Bilal Phillips in the early 90s. Hafidhahullah. So may Allah preserve him. May Allah preserve all the efforts towards Islamic mental health and just Islamic education in general. For those of you who are wondering, by the way, this is not a virtual background. Alhamdulillah, I'm actually in the middle of the woods in a beautiful cabin right now. Alhamdulillah. And ironically, the conversation that we're going to be talking about is about friendship, meaningful friendship within an Islamic concept, but also the plethora of research which is out there now on close friendships, excuse me, close personal relations, and our overall mental health. And there is a lot out there. The study that I refer to the most is something known as the Grant study, which I won't be talking much about this time, but the Grant study, or it's also called the Harvard Study on Adult Development. And what that study showed is that it's the longest standing study in at least US history. It's been going on for over 80 years. It's on its like seventh or eighth generation now, but they interview families and then their kids and their grandkids and their grandkids and their grandkids. So, 8, 9 generations at this point. on And over different tests on depression, anxiety. And what they found is that one of the biggest predictors of overall health, including mental and physical, is the company you keep. Those who had closer family ties, those who had closer friendship ties, had lower rates of depression, diabetes, heart disease, just across the board overall, better health, less chances of developing Alzheimer's. So نبدأ بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وبقول الله تعالى أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم واصبر نفسك مع الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه. And keep yourselves patient with those who call upon their Lord in the morning and the evening. From this verse in Surah Al-Kahf that we read, inshallah, every Friday, if not more, we learn the story of a group of individuals, a group of young men who escaped an oppressive society, but they escaped it together. And Allah is encouraging us in this verse to be patient, not just alone, right? Because we are not meant to be in this world alone. We are not meant to be in this world alone. Even Adam al-Islam had Hawa, and then Allah gave him progeny. Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhu were there for the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though he needed sallallahu alaihi wasallam, nobody else, but he had Allah. But still, we are meant to be connected to others. COVID was a huge reminder of how important human connection is, right? And it's suffice to say, we're connecting online, they'll at least meet once or twice a year in person. Even though everything can be accomplished virtually, there's still something about the human element of seeing somebody face to face, talking with them, interacting with them, and not isolating yourself. Right? And so in Surah Al-Kahf, Allah Azza wa Jal, even though He had guided these youth to isolate themselves from an evil society, but they did it together. So they didn't do it alone. And in Surah Al-Furqan, Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَيَوْمَ يَعْضُ الظَّالِمُ عَلَى يَدَيْهِ يَقُولُ يَا لَيْتَنِي أَتَّخَذْتُ مَعَ الرَّسُولِ سَبِيلًا. On the day of judgment, the wrongdoer will bite his hands and say, in regret, and say, I wish I had taken a path with the messenger. يا ليتنا يا ويلتا ليتني لم أتخذ فلانا خليلا. Oh, woe to me, I wish I had not taken so and so as a friend, right? Because they guided me to a path that eventually led to my destruction. May Allah protect us. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, of course, in the very famous hadith, Al-mar'u ala dini khalili, that a person is upon the deen, the religion, the following of his friends. فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَحَدَكُمْ مَنْ يُخَالِلْ. So look each and every one that show me who you are and show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are, right? It's often quoted that you are the conglomerate basically of the five people closest to you. That's not research based. It's in one of these self-help books. Because we are so much more than that, but we are definitely influenced by those around us. When we talk about human development, we talk about nature and nurture, right? Yes, there is a genetic component to it. Of course, there's fitra, but our environment very much matters, right? And the Prophet ﷺ said, Al-maru ma'a man ahab, that you will be a man, it will be with those whom he loves. With those where? In Jannah, right? And so, when you think about choosing friends, when you think about who what type of support group I want, this is one of the things. Do I want to be with them in the afterlife? Are their actions the actions of somebody who will be in Jannah or Jahannam? Right? So this is something to kind of constantly think about. Um, I've been in this field now, alhamdulillah, for well over a decade. And what I have noticed is that alongside with therapy, alongside with the correct medication, the correct form of therapy, having a social network, having a strong friends group can literally save your life. I've had clients, subhanAllah, who, you know, had beautiful, wonderful friends on the deen who talked them out of making horrible life choices. And so if you have, strong willpower and so on, but you're isolated, you're missing out on so much more benefit and something that could potentially save your life in this world and in the akhirah. So let's jump into a little bit of the research. Okay. And I'm gonna go over a little bit of the research, very interesting research on friendship. And like I said, we've seen over the last few decades just a plethora of not a few decades, last few years, excuse me, plethora of like research interested in this, especially post-COVID. Um, so a 2014 study spoke about social group membership, right? And so talks about religious groups. So if you are affiliated with a masjid, if you are part of a halaqah or a class in the masjid, right? If you are part of maybe a group that plays soccer or football or cricket or basketball or something, right? If you're part of a group that is there for professional development, it studied what is the impact on being in these different groups and depression. And so what they found was that people who are part of multiple social groups were significantly less likely to develop depression compared to those who had fewer or no social connections, right? On top of that, if you and some of you who maybe had a strong social circle and then ended up moving, um, they found who maybe had depression and had a social circle. If they moved, if they had to relocate, they lost their job, they got into conflict with that social circle, they were significantly more likely to have worsening depression symptoms. Now, let's suppose that somebody does lose that social circle. Like maybe it was not it was best for you, or Allah wanted you to expand your social circle. This research study in 2014 also found that group membership in like making larger social circles can enhance recovery. So even somebody who maybe lost that social circle falls back into depression can you know reactivate the support group, and the people who maybe were struggling with depression and then reached out to some type of support group, they had better rates of managing the depression, right? So this shows that support groups play a very important role, therapeutic role within mental health. Right? Now, this is a very interesting study, and I'm going to go over this really, really briefly, inshallah, for the sake of time. So, we talk about the various benefits as far as deen, as far as socialization, as far as our mental health. But a 2020 research study, and this kind of blew my mind, subhanAllah, showed that five different effects on the brain, neurologically, has five different effects on the brain. It directly shapes brain function. How so? Okay. So the first finding in this 2020 study is that friendships stimulate the brain's reward pathway. So there was a functional MRI study. A functional MRI is something not used too heavy in clinical. It's more like research, but it is used in the social science world, among other things, to actually map out the brain and see. It's like a live feed of the brain and what areas, what regions of the brain are active and what regions are not active while maybe somebody is doing a particular activity. So functional MRI scans show that social interactions with friends activate a part of the brain called the ventral striatum, and this is part of the brain that deals with it helps with like coordination and movement, but it's also linked to like the pleasure pathways of the brain. So it's linked to food and money and things that cause us to like repeat behaviors. So the same reward that one gets, like getting hundreds of dollars, or the same reward that one gets, eating really, really delicious food, that same region of the brain lights up when we are with um, close friends. Interacting with close friends triggers neural responses in the brain's reward circuitry, reinforcing the desire for social bonding and connection, meaning that you meet somebody and inshallah, and if it's this spending time is for the sake of Allah. So it activates the brain's reward system. The second change in the brain that happens is uh, increased levels of oxytocin. So oxytocin, for those of you who know, it's called the love hormone or the bonding hormone, right? It's released when when a mother is giving birth. It's released when you're in love with somebody, right? Higher oxytocin levels lead to greater stability and stronger ability to handle stress. So research shows that oxytocin releases during positive social interactions, and it's found it's not just romantic relationships, but even with friendships, you have this release of oxytocin. The third brain change, and this is very important, especially for those who have teenagers or younger, but even for us, right? So we know in neuroanatomy that the prefrontal cortex doesn't fully develop. It's part of the brain right here, which is involved in emotional regulation, impulse control, decision making, right? This is why sometimes when we get upset with our children and we think, oh, why weren't you thinking? How could you have done XYZ? Sometimes they weren't actually thinking about all the consequences because their prefrontal cortex is still being developed. So what we found is that individuals with supportive friendships show increased prefrontal activity, right? You you have friends, you're not going to study for a test, or you're not going to go to the masjid, or you're not going to pray, and they encourage you and they say, come on, do this because of XYZ. They help you build your prefrontal cortex to start to think more rationally and regulate your emotions and deal with stress better, right? So one of the du'as that I, subhanAllah, have made a lot, and qadarullah, like it's literally being manifested today, this weekend, was good suhbah for my son Yusuf, right? Because I knew as a parent, we can only do so much. And of course, the best thing we can do is dua. But I knew that, subhanAllah, just him being in a certain surrounding would really, really be healing for him, would really be something that, inshallah, will help him solidify his deen. And so, subhanAllah, we woke up this morning. It's a group of fathers and their kids were at a father and son camp, and these are all brothers who I know from the masjid, right? And these are not my childhood friends. These are some of the brothers I've only known for a few months to a few years, but alhamdulillah, we've developed this close bond because of our love for the deen, because of our shared morals and values. But I want my family to be a family of Quran. And it was so much easier this weekend because we all sat down after Fajr as a group. And so Yusuf is seeing all of his friends reading Quran. He's seeing all the adults reading Quran. So automatically he wants to read Quran. Well, he's already in that environment. What else is he going to do? Right? So the fourth benefit, neurological benefit of friendship is lower cortisol levels. Cortisol levels, that's the stress hormone. It leads to, when you're anxious, when you're stressed out, when you're frustrated, when you have that fight or flight response, the amygdala kicks in and cortisol shoots up, right? So close friendships serve as a buffer against the neurobiological impact of stress, reducing cortisol. And then finally, motivation and positive behavior reinforcement. Having friends encourages goal setting, persistence, positive behaviors through social reinforcement. So those are five different ways that strong friendships directly shape brain function. And I will just share in the 5 minutes that I have left, subhanAllah, that personally, and it's, of course, Allah guides whom He wills. SubhanAllah, when I was younger, I grew up going to predominantly non-Muslim high school. Um, uh, the irony is that Dr. Zakir Naik actually gave khutbah at my high school, which is it's a different story for a different time, inshallah. But I didn't really have any close Muslim friends. And so, as much as my parents tried to give me good tarbiyah and so on and introduce me to Deen, uh, as younger, unfortunately, I wasn't with the right crowd, and I didn't have the allowed me to, and I'm in my 40s now, so it's a while ago, alhamdulillah. At 19 is when Allah blessed me with some beautiful company. And from that, was a journey that every phase in my life, and this is perhaps the dua of my parents, but every phase in my life, uh, I was able to find certain good brothers who I was able to connect with, who kept me on my deen and who encouraged me, motivated me, and I tried to reciprocate the same. So continue to make dua that Allah gives you people. واصبر نفسك مع الذين يدعون ربهم بالغداة والعشي يريدون وجهه. That that Allah surrounds you with those people who want to see the face of Allah, who strive for Jannah. Surround yourself with those people and make dua that Allah surrounds you with those people. So what to look for in friends, really quickly. Allah chooses your family for you, right? Uh, but we get to choose our spouse and we get to choose our friends. So my philosophy is cast a wide net, but be picky. Cast a wide net, but be picky. What are you looking for in friends, right? Sometimes people erroneously say that, well, we have to have all the common interests and so on. Not necessarily, right? If you're with a friend who, is into sports and you're not really into sports, that's okay. Different interests are okay. My best friend, may Allah preserve him, he is like, subhanAllah, Abu Bakr, mashallah. I can never beat him in goodness. Um, we're, but we have similar morals, right? And so just like when you look for a spouse, right? It's okay if there's some different interests, but look for common morals, look for common deen, and somebody who can help you grow, right? So when we talk about friends for the sake of Allah, how does that actually look? Reminders, they bring you comfort, they encourage you, they support you, and there are always opportunities for khair, either you helping them or them helping you, right? What if I am starting to get into the deen, and I have some friends, I have childhood friends who are not a good influence. So how do I let go of them? Do I just make the kfir on them? Wa'udhu billah? What do I do? These are people who I've known my whole life. Do I just stop talking to them? When I had one or two Muslim friends in high school. Uh, when I was 16, I had a very close friend, but we were not, we were not on the best track, subhanAllah. And I love him for the sake of Allah. But when I was 19, I kind of had to cut him off. SubhanAllah, I tried to do it in a nice way because we were like this. We were very, very close, but I just knew we weren't good for each other. We weren't encouraging each other for goodness. We get into a lot of trouble. And I had to tell myself, right? I had to tell myself that right now, if I'm here to help my friend. So I had to have the mentality that in order for me to be a good friend, I have to remove myself from the environment to best support myself and my friend. Fast forward, subhanAllah, I ran into him 15 something years later and just 180, mashallah, he's talking about the different halaqat that he runs and tafsir and this and that. He has two beautiful boys and subhanAllah, right? Allah separated us only for us to unite again, but unite with more maturity, unite with goodness, right? So when you talk about Okay, what do I do with friends that I already have that I know are negative? Remind yourself that, look, this is temporary, Allah, inshallah, and Allah will unite you guys back in goodness, if it's khair for you, but you cannot help somebody else. So I talk to clients who maybe are trying to quit smoking or trying to quit a bad habit, and they say, "Oh, all of my friends do this, and we're all committed to stopping together." You know, that's not really the most effective because you're still in that environment and you are still around people who are still fresh in their recovery, right? So it's okay to remove yourself from that environment with the intention that if I want to be the best version of myself and help others, I need to step away for a bit. I can't grow in a negative environment, right? Okay, so how do I make friends? Really quickly. If I'm shy, as you mature, you start off with friends who and you look for something about propinquity, right? You look for propinquity like proximity, right? That's he's in my class, she's in my class, so we're best friends because of that, or we're part of the same school, or we're part of the same whatever whatever it might be, right? As you get older, you start to look less for acquaintances and you start to look more for meaningful friends, right? So it's okay if you are not the most outgoing, outspoken person. It's okay to have small, intimate friend groups, right? Even if it's one or two people, but make sure that they are um, friends that hold value, friends who are looking out for your dunya and akhirah, right? And then as you are on that journey, fight those negative thoughts. What if I sound awkward? What if I already have a group of friends, right? Excuse me, what if they already have a group of friends? I hear this a lot. Oh, they already know each other from such a long time ago. It's okay, right? The group that I'm in right now, most of them have best friends, right? They have friends that they've known for decades. But we find common benefit. And I was able to like push out that negative thought. And so now, subhanAllah, like with this jama'ah, with this wonderful group of people, alhamdulillah, I mean, I'm able to outsource even some of my brother here. Look, this brother knows how to cook amazing. Help him out in the kitchen. Okay, this brother knows, his knows math really well. I'm not very strong at math. Here, let's do our math homework with him and so on. And we support each other, inshallah, in this way. And please, please, even if you disagree with your local masjid on certain points, stick with the jama'ah, even if they're not perfect. When you look for disagreements, you're going to find them. When you look for points of agreement, you will find them. So may Allah Azza wa Jal bless us with righteous company. May Allah make us among the righteous and surround us with the righteous. And may Allah make us among those who are with the best company on the day of judgment and with the best company in Jannatul Firdaus al-A'la. وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.